cancer clusters.
People directly impacted say this study proves what they have long suspected, that contaminated drinking water caused childhood cancer.
11 children contracted childhood leukemia,
which led to a lot of pain and suffering.
Do we have a problem? Do I need to be concerned? If not, then I'll leave right now.
This public meeting was to voice concerns and get some answers about the unusually high number of childhood leukemia cases in the Phoenix suburb of Maryvale. Even more alarming, in the neighborhood surrounding the school, there were 49 cases of childhood leukemia, 2.5 times higher than normal. Ramona Barrett lived in Maryvale when her youngest daughter Jessica developed leukemia and died.
I thought it was maybe something I did while I was pregnant, and I would just rack my brain to think, what happened? What did I do?
Hey guys, it's me, Comrade Lavender here, and now I'm back with another anti-capitalism true crime unsolved YouTube video. Today I'm going to be doing the Pure Evil, the Maryvale Cancer Cluster Files. Deep dive into this topic, victims of capitalism, TCE pollution, true crime, etc. But before we get started, I'm going to put my other YouTube videos that relate to this topic on the screen right now if you'd like to check them out. So let's get started into this YouTube topic video. In 1987, officials at Human Health Services promised they would study the high rate of childhood leukemia deaths. In one portion of West Phoenix, Arizona, 14 years ago, a nun who worked as the principal of a West Side Catholic school reported to the Arizona Department of Health Services that there appeared to be a high incidences of childhood cancer, mostly leukemia among children in Maryvale. The health department looked at county statistics and confirmed a higher than expected average rate of childhood leukemia cancer deaths in the area, but it refused to conduct a thorough investigation of the problem. Health officials told Sister Joyce that such studies were too expensive and almost never conclusively proved a cause for elevated leukemia death rates. The agency also suggested that the nun not talk about it publicly about the cancer cluster problem, so not to panic the parents of the chargers at the St. Vincent del Paul Catholic Elementary School. School officials were also worried about publicity in the area, but for a different reason. They feared public discussion of leukemia problem in the area would lead to declining enrollment at the school and perhaps open it to lawsuits. After the 3 years of requesting assistance from the health department and failing to get a meaningful answer or response, the nun had finally given up. She was transferred out of the state in 1987. Sister Joyce had strongly suspected that the pollution might have caused some sort of leukemia in Maryvale. There was evidence to support such suspicions. In 1982, shortly before the nun first approached the health department, the city of Phenix permanently closed 2 Maryvale drinking water wells that were estimated to have served well over 10,000 people. The wells have been found to contain unhealthful levels of trichloroethylene. State records revealed the industrial degreaser and suspected carcinogen, human carcinogen, known commonly as TCE, had been dumped into the ground by several high-tech plants located just 1/3 of a mile northeast of the wells. Those records also show that the underground water under those plants flows to the southwest or towards the public supply wells. State environmental experts ran tests and asserted that the Maryvale environment was free from any carcinogens and environmental pollutants that may make kids sick. They said there was no problem with pesticides in the soils, no dangerous amounts of radiation, no contaminated drinking water supply areas. Then in 1989, 2 more Maryvale drinking water wells were closed because of TCE contamination. With oversights from a panel of out-of-state scientists appointed by the CDC, the state conducted 2 additional statistic studies. It was reconfirmed a higher than average rate of childhood leukemia from 1965 to 1986 on Phoenix West Side. In 1989, DHS promised it would conduct a case control study entailing lengthy interviews with the case families of leukemia victims and control families of healthy children in that areas to determine what environmental influences might be associated with at least some of the leukemia cancers. The study was originally to have thought to be completed in 1991. But as public interest waned, the state of Arizona turned its back on the victims of capitalism and on its promises to the people of Maryvale. State inaction has not only prolonged the anguish of parents of leukemia victims, it has also protected the city of Phenix from lawsuits and allowed suspected capitalist companies and corporations that polluted to avoid paying expensive cleanup costs. Big Pharma is profiting off of all this as well, keeping people sick for mega capitalism profits, because Big Pharma is the one who makes the chemotherapy drugs, and that's how they make their money, keeping people sick. One of the victims of capitalism, Kathy's story, Joe Guzman, can't remember exactly when the stranger rang the front doorbell of his home, but it was at least 24 years ago. Before Kathy died, the stranger had said, "You have a daughter with leukemia and you want to save her," the stranger told Joe. "But you can't save her, they all die." Then the man turned and walked off into the darkness. Joe never saw him again, but he wonders now if the man was one of the Maryvale parents who had lost a child to the disease. Joe was terribly disturbed, is still disturbed by the visit. At the time, the high school Spanish teacher was already under considerable amounts of stress. His daughter Kathy had been diagnosed with leukemia when she was only 3 years old. Kathy's medical bills, even with insurance, were overwhelming. As much as Joe longed to be with the child who had cancer, he had to spend extra hours away from home, trying to earn money to care for his wife, Pauline, and 6 other children. After Kathy died in 1972 at the age of 7, the doctor told Pauline to throw away her child's pictures, clothes, and toys. "Get a job, Pauline," the doctor said. Never once, Pauline says, did anyone tell her of Maryvale's cancer cluster problem, of Sister Joyce's suspicion that there was an environmental factor and linked pollutant to the leukemia, or of the nun's futile struggle to get the health department to conduct meaningful investigations. TCE was first detected in Maryvale drinking water pipe at 59th Avenue and Indian School Road in February 1981. But the city of Phoenix did not test for TCE in Maryvale drinking water wells until a year and 5 months after the first detection, records had showed. The city then shut 2 wells at the 38th Avenue and Earl Drive near the Johnston and Guzman homes because TCE was present at levels almost 6 times the health standard that had recently been imposed by the Environmental Protection Agency. Since 1987, the city has tried to protect itself from the lawsuits that might arise from the Maryvale wells. The city also huddled with the state health department. The result of the huddle was again a conclusion that it would be impossible to tell whether the water was the cause of these cancer clusters. For instance, in 1991, a city water official drew on a map several consensus tracts most likely to receive contaminated drinking water from the polluted wells. But informed critics say the map was misleading because it did not take into account the underground pipeline system that determined which homes got the contaminated water supply. Relying on this misleading map, the state concluded there was no link between the contaminated city drinking water and the leukemia cases, gaslighting the victims of capitalism. DHS used this conclusion as the basis for a controversial decision. The state decided its case control study of Maryvale would look at many possible reasons for childhood leukemia in Maryvale and those areas, including house dust, secondhand smoke from cigarettes, and medication mothers took when they were pregnant. But the study would not seriously look into or investigate whether TCE contamination of the drinking water was a possible cause for at least some of the childhood cancer rates of leukemia. Another victim of capitalism story, Joey's story. Each day on her way to work, Bobby Kraber dropped her infant son Joey at her mother's house in Maryvale. Bobby's mother loved babysitting Joey, loved to rock him back and forth and hug him and give him his bottle of formula. The attentive grandmother made sure the formula was not too hot, not too cold, mixed half and half with canned liquid and water she drew from the kitchen tap. When Joey was less than 2 years old, he got leukemia cancer. The leukemia took a particularly rapid course and case, and Joey died in his and in his 18-year-old mother's arms, a few days short of what would have been his third Christmas. In the late 1950s, farmland near the intersection of 35th Avenue and Osborn was converted to industrial use. It was an area prized by semiconductor manufacturers and aerospace firms. Dozens of companies, including large ones like Nucor and United Industrial and Corning Glass Works at different times, owned factories in the industrial zone areas which thrived from the early 1950s to the 1980s. Recently, the state settled a lawsuit with two large companies suspected of being major groundwater polluters in the area of the West Central Phoenix Superfund site known as the West Osborn Complex. The area is located just a third of a mile northeast of two city wells found to be contaminated with TCE, and the area is an upgradient of those wells, meaning that contaminants reaching groundwater in the West Osborn Complex would naturally have flowed towards the city wells. The settlements the state reached were for small sums that won't begin to cover the costs of stopping the spread of the plume of groundwater contaminated with TCE, let alone repaying the cost of removing the solvent from the groundwater. A 1988 State Department of Environmental Quality report acknowledges that workers had complained to the agency about one company, Corning Glass Works, which owned a factory called Components Incorporated, which was located in the West Osborn Complex. In the early 1970s, a shop and maintenance manager for several companies from 1959 to 1972, including the Corning-owned plant, reported that TCE was used in every building. People would use 1.5 buckets of TCE at the work area and throw it away when it got dirty. People threw TCE away all over the place like dirty water. The companies began using more and more TCE, and materials went down to the ground to the septic tanks. When the chemical resale value went up, companies recycled the TCE. Another victim of the capitalism story, Rudy's story. Rudy remembers how thrilled she was as a child when her parents purchased a little tract home near 37th Avenue Earl Drive. Rudy's parents bought home 41 years ago. The real estate agent had said the city would soon build a park in the neighborhood, which is one of the factors why they bought that home. However, the park was never built, but no matter. Rudy and her 3 sisters and big brother used the playground nearby Midred School as if it was their very own backyard or park. The school grounds were situated next door to what Rudy only knew as big factories on the 37th Avenue and Osborn Road. The drinking water wells on Earl Drive had not yet been closed when Rudy's sister Rosa was diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease that has been associated with TCE, contaminated drinking water, in 1980, and they weren't shut down when Rudy was diagnosed with leukemia in 1981. The illnesses forced both women to give up their good careers and jobs.